Welcome to Prep and Play, where we have conversations about safer sexual pleasure. This podcast is dedicated to empowering listeners through open, honest discussions surrounding keeping our minds, bodies, and spirits healthy while being sexually active. My name is Danielle, and today we will be talking about World AIDS Day. I have with me Chance Shaw. Chance, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everybody, my name is Chance Shaw. I am Director of Prevention at AIDS Alabama South. I've been with us almost 5 years and worked through most positions. I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you, Chance. As I said, we'll be talking about World AIDS Day, its significance, the origins, and how it's evolved through the years. We'll talk a little bit about how you can get involved, especially in the Mobile area. So I believe World AIDS Day is a super important sexual health topic, specifically because not only does World AIDS Day aim to garner support for people living with HIV, but it also actively combats stigma. And combating stigma is one of the most important jobs that we have in the sexual health field, because when there is stigma, people aren't getting tested, people aren't taking preventative health measures. And so that's one of the main purposes of this podcast, and that's one of the things that World AIDS Day accomplishes very well.
So, kind of digging into the origins of World AIDS Day, it was started in 1988 by the World Health Organization, and a couple of key figures in that, James W. Bunn and Thomas Netter, were the ones who proposed the idea. They were the public information officers for the global program on AIDS at the time. With that, when they proposed it, we were about 7 years into the HIV epidemic. We really started seeing the first signs in 1981. We know now that it does go back a little further than that, but when we started recognizing the signs and they really started getting big enough to be noticed was the middle of 1981. It started with a group of doctors in New York and in California recognizing that they were seeing an increasing number of gay male patients with similar diagnoses. Things like Kaposi's sarcoma, various types of pneumonia that were typically only seen in people who were immunocompromised. It didn't make sense to them why these otherwise healthy young men were being diagnosed with things that, typically you only saw if you were going through, extensive treatment for cancer or, something else that destroyed your immune system. From there, they started researching into it, and when they started looking into it, in the beginning, they really kind of ignored everybody else that was presenting these symptoms and focused primarily on the gay men that were. And it actually led them to originally call HIV's GRID, Gay-Related Immune Disorder. From there, they started doing more research and putting more things together. They realized that it did affect women as well, that it affected children as well. And they also started paying attention to the fact that it was also heavily hitting minority communities. It's something they didn't quite have a proper response to it at that point for those communities, but they did at least start seeing that it was affecting these communities. From there, they did research into what was causing it. It took them a few years to figure out that it was a virus that they later named HIV. Initially, it was named, I believe, HTLV4. But they started putting all these different pieces together. During the same time period, you also had people like Roger McFarlane, who, fun fact, is actually from Mobile, who helped found Gay Men's Health Crisis, which was initially a hotline in New York, and then one of the first AIDS service organizations to start advocacy and support services for people living with HIV. You had Larry Kramer, who started building awareness and funding for research and things like that. And of course, the infamous ACT UP Fight AIDS. ACT UP was an organization that he put together. It was the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. And it was designed to empower people living with HIV, to support them, and to advocate for better funding, better research, things like that. So that kind of leads us back to 1988, where at this point, AIDS was known on a global level, and the World Health Organization decided that they did need to start global campaigns for awareness, for recognition, and for education. One of these things was starting World AIDS Day. On December 1st, we all get together, we recognize those that we've lost to this epidemic over the past 40 years. We recognize the advances that we've made. We recognize the different ways the field has changed, and then we also celebrate our survivors as well. We're lucky enough that we do still have folks that have been surviving and really thriving with this now for decades, especially when in the beginning that was kind of an against all odds type thing. Another part of World AIDS Day is combating that stigma that Danielle was talking about earlier. With that, something we've realized is not enough people talk about HIV and AIDS. And when they do, they're still talking about it like it's 1983. You know, oh, don't get near that person, you might get it. Oh, don't do this, don't do that. But the reality is, it's much harder to transmit than what we thought in 1983. So we've got to start talking about these advances, these changes, this gap in knowledge between what everyone knows and what we know as fact now. And part of that is talking about it and dispelling that stigma so that people do feel comfortable talking about it. And additionally, when we dispel that stigma, it makes it easier to get tested. It makes it easier for people who are living with HIV. It makes it easier to be open about your status, whether you're living with HIV or not. So it really, dispelling that stigma benefits everyone. Another part of World AIDS Day is promoting solidarity among those who are living with HIV. It's something that, this is an incredibly diverse community of people who may not necessarily be aware of other aspects of that community. Oftentimes living with HIV can be incredibly isolating. As I mentioned, because of that stigma, you still have folks even in 2024 who get disowned by their family, who get kicked out of their house, who get shunned by their friends. And so in World AIDS Day, if there's no other day a year, this is a day that we get to kind of promote solidarity among those who are living with HIV and kind of link them together and help them support themselves as well and find that community in a shared diagnosis.
Yes, thank you, Chance. And one of my favorite things about World AIDS Day is how it evolves through the years. It kind of changes to fit the times that we're living in. And one of the ways that that's represented is by the different themes. So each year, World AIDS Day has a theme. So the founding theme itself in 1988 was communication. And I like that because at a time when there's very little information publicly out there about HIV, about AIDS, they decided to focus on communication in order to spread awareness and really begin combating that stigma. In 2001, the theme was I Care, Do You? What a powerful message, not only for those living with HIV, but for allies. It's really a call out, a call together, a call in. And then in 2012, Together We Will End AIDS. This is really when the conversations around ending the epidemic start beginning, when we start seeing that medical advances can at one point create a world where nobody dies of AIDS-related illness anymore.
It's 2012, we've got Together We Will End AIDS. And that was right around the time that the research around U equals U was coming out. And those advances in medication, in treatment. And so it's not just ending the AIDS epidemic, but it's also an idea that we can end AIDS for people who are living with HIV too. There's no longer a reason that someone has to suffer. They can get medication, they can get treatment, they can live and they can thrive with HIV instead of, 20 years prior to this, they were diagnosed with HIV and then it was kind of a slow march to the end type thing.
2018 was Know Your Status. I still very much love that in my day-to-day work as a prevention specialist. Knowing your status is one of the most important ways that we can all go about combating HIV epidemic.
Going to 2018, the Know Your Status, that's when we really started seeing the biggest pushes for rapid testing in communities and things like that. Rapid testing had been around for a little while at that point, but that's the point when we started getting newer generations of tests like the Insti that gives results in 60 seconds. Honestly, that test gives results quicker than we can explain it to you. Most of the time when we're doing those tests, we'll be talking about it and it'll be 5, 10, 15 seconds between when that test is ready and when I'm done explaining it in order for them to get their results. But that's when we really started seeing that proliferation of testing and accessibility. And granted, it's not perfect. And testing still, it lacks accessibility in a lot of areas. But it did start getting better with those new generations of rapid tests then.
And then in 2021, end inequalities in AIDS, in pandemics. This is at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it was just a reminder that we're not really through with the AIDS pandemic. We're not really through with ending AIDS and ending HIV in the world.
And then 2021, end inequalities, end AIDS, end pandemics. As Danielle touched on, 2021, we were going through a lot of different things. We were just on the tail end of the largest push at the beginning of Black Lives Matter. And that's something that pointed out systemic inequalities in our justice system and our policing system. But it also, for those of us that are in the public health world, we also started looking at the inequalities that are baked into our healthcare system and things like that. Systemic distrust of the medical system from people of color, the access that minority groups often face, just like we talk about food deserts and over-policing in certain areas, there's also medical deserts. If you drive through certain parts of, let's say, Mobile, for instance, if you drive through certain parts of West Mobile, there's a doctor on every corner, there's plenty of urgent cares, of freestanding ERs. But if you go through like certain areas of Crichton or Pritchard or Tillman's Corner, places like that, you don't see them as often. You may have one or two, and even the ones that are there, they're going to be overwhelmed. They may not be taking new patients. They may not have the technology or the staffing to be able to do everything that a lot of these other clinics can do. So even when there is access, there's still other barriers. And then that ties in as well, we were going through the COVID pandemic at that time, and there were a lot of similarities in the way we were looking at COVID and the way we looked at HIV in the beginning, as far as not really knowing what we needed to do to fight it. There was all kinds of research into vaccines, into transmission, trying to figure out what was really going on. And honestly, a lot of the reason that we got a vaccine so quickly and we got the information we did so quickly about COVID was because of the infrastructure they put into place when we were first dealing with HIV. So all of these end up being very timely themes.
Those were just some of the themes that I thought really highlighted how well this World AIDS Day campaign has, through the years, spread awareness, combated stigma, and promoted solidarity amongst both those living with HIV and allies. Moving forward to some of the current significance of World AIDS Day today, in 2024. So there's still issues and challenges that we're facing in the prevention field, in the treatment field as well. What would you say, Chance, is the biggest barrier to both treatment and care?
That's going to be access. One of the biggest things in treatment and prevention, those barriers, we've got a large number of ASOs, especially, I'm going to talk specifically about the Southeast. We've got a large number of ASOs that cover the entire South, but most of those are located in our major cities. And outside of those major cities, we still have people having sex. We still have people who use drugs. We still have people who are engaging in other risk factors that may put them at risk for HIV, and they're not being reached as well as, say, the people right here in Mobile in our own backyard. We cover 12 counties, for instance. For the most part, most of us don't live in 10 of those counties. And it gets really difficult to get into those counties to get folks the treatment and the care and the prevention that they need. Additionally, in these places, they're a bit more rural. People are a bit more spread out. So you have to realize that, when you go out into these places, you're going to see a lot less people for your time. And because of that, a lot of agencies don't want to focus on rural areas. They look at the funding, the resources it takes to go to some of these smaller towns, and for them, they feel like it doesn't make sense for them to spend whatever X amount of money to go to this small town when they can spend that same amount of money around the corner and get 3 times as many people. But the thing is, those people around the corner already had access. Those people in that small town, in that rural area, they didn't have access, and they're really the ones that need it.
That is a great point. That's a great point. I specifically, as rural and minority outreach specialist, have struggled, in those communities, getting people to show up, getting people to actually get tested when they do show up. And that's one of the reasons that motivated this podcast, was to be able to have a way of spreading information, spreading the importance of getting tested, even when those communities are hard to reach. And then also another challenge that I face is just stigma and misinformation in general. I think that's one of the driving factors when people do refuse to get tested, even when they do have access. There's just this, if I get tested, that means there's something wrong with me. When we get tested because we have sex, or maybe we use drugs and we want to know our status, we want to be safe, and there's never any harm in knowing. It's like the biggest danger you can do to yourself is to not know your status. And then this year, our theme, the 37th World AIDS Day theme, is going to be collective action, sustain and accelerate HIV progress. And so that's both sustaining the progress that's already been made, that Chance has talked about. Over the decades, we have had insane advancements in the medical field, and then also accelerating that by really, ensuring that people are getting tested, ensuring that people are knowledgeable about HIV and AIDS in a way that will promote further progress.
One thing to tie that in, sustain and accelerate HIV progress. Over the last couple of years, we've started seeing essentially some big leaps forward in HIV treatment. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest is long-acting injectables. A couple of years ago, FDA finally gave approval for cabotegravir, which is a long-acting injectable that means that people can only have to go get treatment once every other month once they reach that undetectable status that we mentioned. So this goes from people having to take a pill every day to only having to get a shot once every 2 months. And then the latest advances on the horizon, and what they're really hoping to accelerate approval for, is lenacapavir. That's going to be a long-acting injectable for both treatment and for PrEP. That is a once every 6 months shot. So wow. We're looking at, being able to maintain undetectable status in someone living with HIV with 2 shots a year at that point, down from 365 pills a couple of years ago, or 10, 15 years ago, that may have been 1,000, 1,500 pills for the year because you had to take 3 or 4 a day. So these big advances coming forward. And then, as I mentioned with PrEP too, that's really a game changer with PrEP. And when it comes to adherence for that, one of the biggest things we see with the quote-unquote failure rate of PrEP, which is still really low, is there's an issue with adherence. And with a long-acting injectable, either every other month, every 6 months, you take a lot of that issue with adherence away from it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about if someone's taking their pills every day. Or if you're taking PrEP yourself, you don't have to remember, did I take my PrEP today? Did I take it this week? and go and sit there and count your pills or whatever. All you need to make sure is that you see that doctor once every 2 months or once every 6 months. Additionally, when they do these visits, people are getting tested for STIs. They're getting tested for, high blood pressure, for, blood sugar issues, all of that. And so it promotes overall health as well.
And so some of the global and local observances of World AIDS Day are going to include wearing a red ribbon to signify awareness and support for people living with HIV. Some areas will be having AIDS walks to raise funds for different organizations, either supporting the cause or helping to combat HIV. And then specifically in the U.S., our White House actually displays a 28-foot ribbon, and they've been doing that since 2007. It's been across 4 different presidencies so far, and that's a really cool thing to see the White House supporting the cause.
Absolutely, especially when you consider in the beginning of the epidemic, the White House, and in particular Ronald Reagan, who was president at the time, refused to acknowledge the AIDS epidemic until almost 5 years into it. It wasn't until we started seeing big names, people who were well-known celebrities, people like that, affected by HIV, that the White House actually acknowledged it. And really, it wasn't until the death of Rock Hudson, who was a personal friend of Ronald Reagan's, that they really started acknowledging it for the first time and dedicating funding and research and all of that towards the HIV epidemic. So the fact that, we have the White House through a couple of different presidents on both sides of the aisle recognizing this day is really a big deal when you consider where we've come from.
Yeah, definitely. And then also, here at AIDS Alabama South, we will be doing Dining Out for Life, which I'll have our development coordinator, Antonio, talk to us a little bit more about. So, AIDS Alabama South is thrilled to announce our upcoming Dining Out for Life event. It's scheduled to take place on World AIDS Day, Sunday, December 1st, 2024. This annual fundraising event unites the community in support of individuals living with HIV and those most at risk by raising vital funds to aid in prevention and education efforts. Antonio, would you like to tell us more about Dining Out for Life on World AIDS Day?
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Antonio Brito with AIDS Alabama South. I'm the development coordinator here. AIDS Alabama South is asking you to dine out for life on World AIDS Day, Sunday, December 1st. Generous restaurants and bars across our community are participating by giving us a percentage of their sales that day. For a list of participating restaurants, go to AIDS Alabama South's social media pages or website, AIDSalabamaSouth.org. And everyone should get tested for HIV at least once a year. And you can make World AIDS Day your day to get tested for free. We will have our mobile testing unit in downtown Mobile, or you can visit our agency Monday through Friday. So some of the restaurants and bars that we have participating would be Squid Inc., Bob's Downtown Restaurant, Alchemy Tavern, Flipside Bar and Patio, Lit Cigar Lounge, Gabriel's Downtown, Rock and Roll Sushi on McGregor Avenue, PS Taco Company in Saraland, Time to Eat Cafe in Theodore, Rear Pocket, the Midtown Pub, Club Elevate in Theodore. We also have the Outsider Sports Lounge and Starbucks on Airport and Downtowner. We will literally be updating this list every day until December 1st, which is our World AIDS Day event, where we will be hosting our Dining Out for Life at all of these locations, and there will be more to come. So please continue to check AIDS Alabama South's Facebook and Instagram pages for more details and way more locations.
And then, so the role of individuals and communities, we can all participate and contribute to World AIDS Day, whether it's just by getting tested, participating in a fundraiser such as Dining Out for Life, where you don't really have to do anything other than eat at your favorite restaurants, and you will be supporting the cause.
So here locally, we've got a couple of different things going on. We're going to be doing testing downtown off of Conti Street throughout the afternoon for World AIDS Day. We're also going to have a big push for testing during the week because we realize Sunday people are busy, but we still want people to think about getting tested on that day and come and see us during the week whenever it's convenient for you. Another couple of things, Mobile County Health Department always does an observance. I'm not sure what they're going to do this year, but they always have something pretty cool to do. Last year, they did a second line parade as a celebration of life and survivorship instead of mourning those we've lost in the past. So it was really kind of an interesting experience on that. They've also done art exhibits. They've done panels where they've had people who were living with HIV speak about their experience. I know throughout the state, there's a couple of different organizations that are doing things. In Birmingham, there's a gala that's going on that's going to be recognizing the advances we've made in people living with HIV. But all over the state, there's going to be something going on, and really all over the country. You could pretty much Google AIDS and your area this time of year, and you should be able to find something that's going on. And if you want to get involved in any of those, reach out to your local ASO or to your local health department and see if they have ways you can get involved. For those locally here in Mobile, you can get involved by joining one of the observances that's going on. You can get involved by coming and getting tested. Or, as Danielle mentioned, you can get involved simply by going out to eat and, enjoying one of your favorite restaurants that's on the list of restaurants supporting us for Dining Out for Life.
All right. Well, that is our time for today. Thank you for joining me, Chance. This has been a great discussion on the history and significance of World AIDS Day, why we have it, ways you can get involved today. Join me next time. I believe we're going to be talking about bacterial STIs. See you guys soon. Yay.